Hey, is that meant to be some kind of fashion statement, old man? The young convenience store clerk scoffed as his hand flicked out, aiming to grab the small, weathered American flag patch stitched onto the sleeve of Sergeant Major Arthur Art Coleman's faded denim jacket. Art, 76 years old, a combat veteran whose calm exterior concealed decades of military service, instinctively drew his arm back. "That's not something you touch, son," he said firmly. "It stands for something." The clerk laughed, dismissively, arrogantly. "Means you're stuck in the past. Just a piece of cloth." 5 minutes later, as Art quietly paid for his coffee, the bell above the entrance chimed. 3 imposing figures stepped inside, dressed in immaculate army combat uniforms, boots sounding off against the linoleum floor. They didn't browse. Instead, they formed a line directly behind Art at the counter, their eyes trained steadily on the clerk. If you believe the flag and those who defend it deserve unwavering respect, type respect below. Arthur Art Coleman was a man forged from duty, endurance, and quiet humility. His life had been devoted to service, starting as a young recruit in Vietnam's rice paddies, ending over 30 years later as a revered sergeant major in the Army Rangers. A mentor to countless soldiers, the lines on his face marked campaigns fought in blistering deserts and icy mountain passes. His slightly hunched posture bore the burden of rucksacks heavier than the clerk behind the counter likely ever carried. He now lived alone in a tidy apartment on the outskirts of town. His days followed a gentle routine. Long walks to keep old wounds flexible, volunteering at the local VFW, and a daily cup of coffee from the nearby Quick Stop convenience store. He didn't seek recognition. His medals were boxed away. His stories rarely told, only among those who understood the silent language of shared service. But the faded American flag patch on his jacket sleeve was different. Though no longer standard issue, it had accompanied him on his last tour. A small token of home and hope that had weathered his darkest moments. Its frayed edges and sun-bleached hues were sacred to him, a tribute to fallen comrades and the ideals he'd vowed to defend. He wore it with quiet reverence, never expecting acknowledgement, certainly not disrespect. That Tuesday morning, the Quick Stop was its usual humdrum scene. Construction workers grabbing coffee and donuts, a mother picking up milk, the low drone of coolers in the background. Art nodded to Mrs. Henderson, another regular, before heading to the coffee station. Sarah, the usual clerk, a kind, middle-aged woman, was off. In her place stood someone new, a young man in his late teens or early 20s, bored, disinterested, his slicked back hair matching his apathetic demeanor. His name tag read, Kyle. Art poured black coffee, added 1 sugar, and approached the counter. Kyle barely looked up from his phone as Art placed the coffee and a $5 bill on the counter. "Just the coffee," Art said quietly. Kyle finally glanced up, his eyes passing over Art's jacket, lingering on the flag patch with a sneer that mingled amusement with contempt. He rang it up slowly, as though helping the old man was a personal inconvenience. "That'll be $1.75, Kyle mumbled, still more absorbed by his phone propped near the register. As Art reached for change, Kyle's gaze fixated on the patch again. "Hey," he said, smirk forming. "What's that supposed to be? Some kind of fashion choice, old man? Trying to look patriotic or just can't afford a new jacket?" The words were loud enough for everyone in the store to hear. Art felt the usual twinge of annoyance, something he normally brushed off. But this casual mockery of the flag, cut deeper. "It's a flag patch, son," Art replied calmly. "From my time in the service." Kyle's grin widened. "Service, huh? What? The Salvation Army? His voice was mocking now, playing to an imagined audience. Before Art could fully absorb the insult, before discipline could suppress his rising anger, Kyle did the unthinkable. In a swift motion, he reached across the counter and yanked at the patch on Art's sleeve. Let's take a closer look at this little souvenir, Kyle sneered, leaning in. Art recoiled, arms snapping back. That's not for touching, son, he said sharply. The calm was gone. Now his voice carried the commanding tone of a sergeant major. It means something. It's not a toy. The steel in his voice made Kyle blink, his smirk flickering, though not for long. Arrogance quickly reclaimed him. Oh, are we sensitive now? Kyle mocked in a high-pitched voice. It means something. Means you're stuck in the past, old man. Just a piece of cloth. Probably made in China, like everything else. He leaned back smugly, arms folded, oblivious to the silent stares around him. Mrs. Henderson looked appalled. One of the construction workers shook his head in disgust. Art stood motionless, hand still protectively over the patch. His face was pale, jaw clenched. The disrespect wasn't just personal, it desecrated something sacred. That patch had survived mortar blasts, ambushes, and endless nights waiting for medevac. It had symbolized hope, home, purpose. To see it mocked and manhandled, it was unbearable. He took a deep breath, restraining himself. Creating a scene would solve nothing. Quietly, he took his change and coffee, his hand trembling ever so slightly. You've got a lot to learn about respect, young man, he said, voice gravelly, then turned and walked out. Kyle's derisive laughter followed him out. Outside, the cool air did little to calm him. He took a few steps, then sat on a brick wall near the parking lot. The coffee sat untouched beside him. His heart pounded, not from exertion, but the raw emotion. He looked down at the patch. Just a piece of cloth, the boy had said. Art closed his eyes. Suddenly, he wasn't outside a store. He was back in the Iadrang Valley, smoke thick in the air, wounded, screaming, a young private beside him clutching a similar flag as life slipped away. No, this wasn't about him. It was about what that flag stood for. Letting that insult slide felt like betrayal. He reached for his phone. It wasn't a smartphone, just a sturdy flip phone, but it held the numbers that mattered. He scrolled past old comrades, his doctor, the VFW, and stopped at Garrison HQ Duty Officer, the number for nearby Fort Matthews. He hadn't called it in years. Was this worth it? Then he remembered Kyle's sneering face, the grab, the mockery. It was worth it. He hit call. Fort Matthews Garrison Headquarters, Staff Sergeant Miller speaking. How may I direct your call? Art took a breath. This is Sergeant Major Arthur Coleman, retired. I need to report an incident of severe disrespect toward the flag and a veteran by an employee at the Quick Stop convenience store on the corner of Elm and Oak. He recounted the incident, briefly, factually, focusing on the disrespect shown to the flag. Staff Sergeant Miller listened without interruption. The faint sound of typing could be heard. Understood, Sergeant Major Coleman, Miller said. Location confirmed. Please remain where you are. This is being escalated. We take these reports seriously, especially involving the colors and veterans. A response will arrive shortly. The line went dead. Art didn't know what follow-up presence meant, but he trusted the tone. He waited on the brick wall, feeling oddly calm. Inside the store, Kyle recounted his version of the story to the delivery driver, exaggerating, mocking Art. He didn't notice the change until the driver's eyes widened, staring toward the entrance. The bell chimed, not tentatively, but with purpose. 3 soldiers entered, uniforms flawless, boots gleaming, posture straight. They didn't browse. They moved in unison to the register, forming a quiet, imposing line behind where Art had just stood. Kyle stopped mid-sentence. His confidence evaporated. These weren't just guys in uniform. They were the Army. And they weren't smiling. Mrs. Henderson looked on, wide-eyed. The construction workers froze. The delivery man slipped out the back. The soldiers stood at parade rest, silent. The lead, a staff sergeant, had a neatly folded flag tucked into his shoulder pocket. Kyle swallowed hard. Can I help you guys?" he stammered. The staff sergeant, Ramirez, spoke, calm but firm. "We're not here to make a purchase, son. We're here because of a report about an employee showing deep disrespect to a U.S. Army veteran and the flag he wears." Kyle turned pale. "It was just a misunderstanding. The old guy—" Ramirez raised a hand. "No misunderstanding exists when it comes to respecting the flag, or those who've served beneath it." He continued, voice unflinching. "Sergeant Major Coleman served this nation with distinction for over 3 decades. That patch isn't decoration. It's sacred." He leaned in slightly. "And you mocked it. You grabbed it. You belittled a man who's lived more courageously than you've likely imagined." One of the specialists, Chen, added, "You saw someone you thought was easy prey for cheap laughs." Another, Jackson, stared silently, expression hard. Ramirez continued. "He didn't ask for an apology. He reported it, as is his right." Then turning to the customers, "This isn't just one store clerk. It's about a mindset, a failure of respect. And that must change." Just then, the store owner, Mr. Patel, rushed in, alerted by a frantic call from Mrs. Henderson. Seeing the soldiers, the silent customers, and his trembling clerk, he understood immediately. "What is going on here?" he asked. Ramirez explained respectfully but clearly, recounting Kyle's behavior and the insult to Coleman and the flag. Mr. Patel was horrified. "This is terrible," he gasped. He turned to Kyle. "Did you say this? Did you grab the veteran's flag?" Kyle, eyes filled with tears, nodded. "I'm sorry. I was stupid." Patel didn't wait. "You're fired. Get your things. I will not tolerate such disrespect. To any customer, especially a veteran." To Ramirez, "Soldiers, I am so sorry. Please give Sergeant Major Coleman my sincerest apologies. This is not what Quick Stop stands for." Ramirez nodded. "We appreciate that. Some staff training on respect and military service might be helpful." "Absolutely," Patel agreed. The soldiers turned and exited, as silently as they had entered. Art watched from the wall. Ramirez caught his eye, gave a slight nod of respect, then climbed into a waiting military vehicle. Art smiled. He lifted the now cold coffee, took a sip, and for the first time that morning, it didn't taste bitter. Mr. Patel rushed out, full of apologies, insisting Art come back for a hot coffee. On the house, Art accepted. True to his word, Patel spent the next few days ensuring every employee understood the meaning of respect for veterans and the symbols they carry. Kyle was seen later, job hunting, perhaps having learned a hard lesson in humility. The story of the 3 soldiers and the disrespectful clerk became a quiet legend in town and at Fort Matthews. It wasn't about intimidation. It was about honor. And on Hidden Sparks, it's a reminder: to insult one is to insult all.